Hello, everybody. This is a voiceover recording of a previously played Salotto match between myself, Sean Lewis, at this time, 685 Fargo, and Todd Shirley, 4 something Fargo. There's going to be a lot of like mouse and YouTube stuff. That's all going to be like from prior recording. I actually was trying to do this on the first run, and this is the second run, so it's going to be a little bit, I wouldn't say disjointed, but some of the mouse clicks and stuff like that, the mouse pointer stuff is not going to be appropriate exactly for what I say on this run. But we're going to just get through it. So I'm doing fast forwarding through some of the stuff, so bear with all that. But we're just going to have the action only and talking about that. So I think the first thing that I talked about was my strategy for the break. When this situation we're playing template rack, 1 on the spot, 9 ball. My opinion about the break, and I think most people's opinion about the break, is it's pretty easy to make the wing ball. So now it's more about playing position for the 1 so that you can run out. So you're playing position for the 1 mainly, and then you just, the ball's spread enough to where they're open, and then you manage that from there. And I think that's pretty much the way to go. Any other break doesn't perform those 2 functions as consistently as kind of like a medium type power stun or draw, and try to make the cue ball into the middle of the table, and then the 1 towards like the top left corner if you're breaking from the right side. And then you try to pocket the wing ball, and if any other balls fall, then that's a bonus. And then you just play the balls from there. And if you can get them a little bit harder to create a good spread, then that's going to be that's the thing, is the speed control. Is to get a little bit of nicer spread that makes the balls a little bit more wide open and less traffic to navigate. So that's what I go for, and I recommend that you begin to learn how to do that. And then if you feel like you can do better than that by hitting it harder or doing whatever you want, then go for it. Now, if you're trying to make the 9 on the break, etc., then that's different. But my opinion is, as you get better, that's less and less the thing that you're going for, and more about trying to control the balls so that you can just run them out and not worry about any of the having to get lucky by making the 9 on the break, etc. So I'm just, running the balls out here as I talk about that strategy. And I'm just trying to, excuse me. Just play a controlled game, play shape for every shot, keep my calmness. But we're playing in a match that I'm just here as a coaching representative, so I don't really have any sort of feel of actual pressure. So just fast forwarding through to Todd's break. So he's breaking from more towards the middle. And then I think that there was something about the hand that I wanted to speak about here. So I'm going to watch his hand. Yeah, and see how the hand doesn't go straight through in a straight line. It actually twists to the right or to his left. And I think I rewinded and come back just to show that that's causing the cue to go offline, and that's why the cue ball is not hitting the center of the rack, and you're losing quite a bit of energy. And I was going to discuss how the effect of hitting off center on the cue ball actually reduces the energy into the rack significantly enough to where my opinion is that you should be prioritizing the center ballness of the hit and the fullness of the hit and your ability to do that over adding any sort of power, because the true percentages of the amount of energy, not just that, but the control reward that you get through using controlled amounts of power as you try to evolve, elevate yourself in this sport is the thing that really gets you there. It's not about hitting it hard. It's about being able to consistently hit it the same so that you can then be successful on different kinds of equipment where there's different paces and requirements, if that makes sense. So it's just looking at the next spot, seeing if this 3 goes past the 7. To me, the shot here is to play the cue ball to the left side of the 3 by punching and using that tangent line with a little bit of follow. Really good stroke. Just hit a little bit too hard. Got hooked on it. Yeah, I think kicking one rail to the bottom of it is good here. And the whole time that I'm, just kind of like observing, if I'm a little bit nervous or whatever, then moving around is always helpful to like burn a little bit of energy. But the rest of the time, you should be just trying to visualize what you need to do. And if you have a value system that you use to play pool, as far as like what kinds of shots you like to shoot and all that, based off of your like relative aggression, conservatism, etc., then that helps you like make easier decisions where you already know based off your values what you're going to do in certain situations, because they just come up and then you answer the question, and if your values don't change, then you come to that situation again or a similar situation, and now you can fall back on what you did last time as your like starting place, and then decide, okay, is this situation the same as that situation, or should I be doing something else? So I just stepped a little bit full, kind of got fortunate with my leave here. And I like playing safe here by just thinning the 3 slightly and going up table to the end rail, or a little bit to the middle of the table, but really just playing the 3 ball down to like a foot over behind the 9, or very thin. As long as you don't come back up and hit the 5 on the way back up, then you're good here. I don't really think that playing a bank shot or like a safety by banking the ball out of there is easy. Got a double kiss there, so we'll never know what he really wanted to do. So, what can I talk? I don't even know what I wonder what I was talking about at this moment. It's hilarious. So, I'm going to try to play. I think I ended up playing this 3 in the side with draw and a little bit of right English to try to come to the right side of the 10, just to avoid bumping the 6 and the 7. That's my cues, a little bit funky. Yeah, see, I have like a lot of mouse pointing that I was doing as I was explaining what was going on. So just disregard that as much as you can, and just some of it will be like, okay, well, this is where the cue ball is going to go, and then this is where the ball wants to go. So you can kind of track that. I was thinking I was going to go up and down. Maybe that's what I was trying to do, and it just caught a little bit of right English, extra right English, and caused it to go there. So I think here I ended up just playing safe. A lot of the safeties that I play the cue ball to the middle of the table on the end rail, and the object ball to the middle of the table as well, and also to the middle of the table on the end rail, just to make it more difficult, because that creates a lot more scratches and difficult like scenarios to play safe by just making the hits a little bit tougher by having to cue off the rail. Yeah, like you'll see, like even if the 9 wasn't there in this situation, it could exist. Just as an example of like what's effective about playing the ball to the middle of the table is it, even though it's cuttable, you could scratch in either corner pocket as the result potentially. So that's going to have something to think about. And a lot of these like defensive plays is more about like creating a little bit of a sense of risk and consequence in your opponent some of the time, to like in to just, get a little bit of a momentum in your favor. Yeah, it looked like he thinned it and it wasn't going to scratch no matter what. But he just left me long. I think I'm going to go for this. A little bit more right English or left English than I wanted. I didn't really want to come like and draw back up towards the 6. I wanted to come straight across, leave a little bit more angle, like in the middle of the table or a little bit to the left of the center. So a little bit underhit that, but I think that's because I overdrew it. There's a little bit too much draw and spin velocity, like spin energy, and not as much velocity energy. And then I missed this ball, just barely hit it too thin. And I might not have shot at that in like a money match or a tournament situation against an equally skilled opponent. But we're sort of just practicing, and I'm critiquing and coaching his game as we go here. So we are like talking a little bit, and it's not quite like mum pool, like tournament serious. So here I just like to play, shoot the 6 straight down the table into the pocket, and then use that tangent line that's been created to come back to basically where the cue ball is right now, and shoot the 7 to the 8 from that position. Looks like he's stretching a little bit, and maybe it might be a good idea to use an extension. Cutting it that way, coming back and forth, that's a good shot. Now just kind of like thinking, okay, just a little bit of right spin here, and just right center cue ball, maybe low right, just a little bit to come back to the same spot where the cue ball's at, playing out of the center of the table is a very good idea. Pretty rough. So here you don't always have to go for it. I remember talking about this shot particularly. In my opinion, is that if you're just rolling this ball in, it's too risky. You should at minimum be trying to draw the cue ball, like make it with the stun or draw, because you do have a little bit of room off the rail, or be thinking about a safety. To just leave yourself straight in and just lag that ball in is fine, except for that now you're leaving yourself a super tough shot on the 9 ball. And when you start to add up your percentages, so it's like if you're going to lag that ball towards the hole, you don't make it, a very, very high percentage of the time your opponent's going to have an easy shot. And your percentage to pocket this ball itself is actually cannot be that high if you're taking this long on it already. And that leads you to be like, well, maybe there's another shot, because really you're just forcing yourself to like pocket this ball, which is low percentage, in order to have an opportunity to pocket another ball, which is going to be low percentage. Or you figure out how to play a safety or a move that allows you then, or another shot that allows you to maybe make it and get position, or to increase your second shot percentage, or a shot that you shoot that doesn't sell out this shot to me, which to me is nice. This is prime. This takes a little bit of doing to get your body in the right position, but there's no trouble there for me, and his shot that he would have left himself on the 9 would have been significantly more difficult. So I would suggest like jacking up and trying to draw that ball back and learning that stroke, or shooting a bank shot, or maybe one rail, kicking at it to pocket it, and just using a lot more speed to try to get some movement on the cue ball to get yourself a better shot, something like that. You just gotta like think about like, okay, it's not just the one worst case, like this is my only shot. I think people get like a sense of finality when they've made a plan, and then they just go down with the ship without really adjusting and being like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should do something else. And that's where I try to help people understand is like, you're not stuck with one shot in one, like with one pattern, with one play. You gotta kind of be adaptable if possible, so that you can see what the easier shot is and the more efficient pattern is now versus what you may have began with. you know all right, ended up no shot here. So I just play the cue ball to the middle of the table, and then the 1 naturally will float towards the top left. And as long as there's no interfering balls, then I typically have an opportunity to run out. And that's just what I play for. And I think that if you watch, it's a bar table match, but he plays 1 on the spot template rack. Justin Bergman, I think, runs like 19 racks in a row using a very similar break to what I'm doing, which is actually where I learned it from. That's why I say similar, because I'm not hitting it necessarily as good as he is. But this is also not a bar table. So I was trying to make that 1 bank shot, but I don't know if I really had the angle. The 6 was interfering of it. So left myself where he just has a good opportunity here. So yeah, the way that he shoots it's really nice. I think 3 rail position to the left side of the table. So he goes low right English, gets a nice grab on that first rail to like keep a lowing, and then stays above the 6 and doesn't bump the 6, and gets to that side rail and then back for the 3. But I'm not really sure. I think we're having a conversation. Some of this is I'd like to really know, like, if he was competing seriously, what would be going on right now, because so much of it isn't like that. Interesting point I'm noticing is on that shot he used a little bit of kind of like turned his cue and used a little bit of wrist movement to apply spin to the cue ball. I think long term that's kind of a complicated motion. I do some of the like backhand English aspects of it. I'm not a big fan of adjusting while you're down. I think that you should ideally learn how to see where you want your shaft to be in the aim line of the shaft, and then before you get down, and then just get down and match that, and then just go with that, and then just learn from there. Again, we're having a little bit of a conversation here. Eventually, we'll get to just playing pool. My opinion is that as much as possible, you want to display yourself as being confident and relaxed. A lot of the body motions that people make that are unconscious behaviors kind of like make it obvious that that's not what's going on. And it's fine to do that. I just think that for myself, my preference would be not to display myself as such. So I do spend a little bit of energy while I'm playing pool, habitualizing, kind of like being a little bit more, not methodical, but maybe conscious of my movements and the way that I move and the speed at which I move and the tempo, and not just kind of do what I don't know what feels right, but I think I'm trying to make an objective decision about who I am and how I want to behave as far as my body and control and the way I display myself. So it's like partly an intent to create a new habit over the top of whatever is going on instead. And as you watch yourself play on stream and on video, you'll see a lot of different behaviors that over time you can eliminate and then put in new things into the place of that if you actively, consciously make those intentions and then do the work of creating, okay, this is what I'm going to do instead of that thing because I don't really like the way I'm doing that. I think he was playing the 9-ball carom, which I like that shot. I think that one of the things that I noticed there is that on a difficult shot like that, it didn't seem as though he got down on the ball and shot it with the same rhythm as other shots that he shoots, and that partly that unknownness of what's going to happen, I think, is where it causes a lot of people to kind of like hit the ball harder or kind of like preemptively shoot the shot and not use their pre-shot routine that they normally have when they're confident. And this is a shot similar to that too, where I think he needs to just put a little bit of right English on it and a little bit high ball to make it swerve wide. And then it should be good. And then I think he just gets down and maybe one stroke and hits it hard and doesn't get there. And I think that really one of the things you want to do is collect data on every shot. And if you get down really fast and just smash at it, it's harder for you to know, like, did I actually hit where I was going to? It looks like he didn't even, he queued up and then immediately took one stroke. And I think a shot like that, although that is a way to do it, it seems to me as though that is an unconscious, desire to get through with it and not to just be like, you know what, this is just a difficult shot that I'm going to be successful at because I'm going to put my energy into it right now. And having that mindset of going into it is that the reason why you're here is to play me, and then I'm going to leave you in spots that you don't like. And you're gonna be leaving yourself in spots you don't like, and you're gonna think, oh, okay, what's he gonna do when he gets to the, and all that stuff is like taking you away from your ability to just execute on your best system, which is why a lot of people start to fail against better players because they're trying too hard and they're not using their system anymore. You're so much of what happens in pool is automated, and you just have to let that be. I'm just going to stun this ball. The natural tangent line of the 6 leads to a 2-row position for the 7. So all I have to do is just stay on that tangent line. I hit it a little bit too full, and that's why the cue ball went a little bit short of where I wanted to. If you guys see that, where it almost missed the 6. That's why I'm short on the 7. So really the mistake there was just hitting it a little bit too full. not hitting it too softly. There's always multiple things that are kind of being affected by a little bit of a mishit. Here's a shot where I think I should just roll forward and then take my licks, but I elect to try to play up and down. Maybe we're less spin here. Yeah, it just didn't grab as much as I wanted to. I needed to get a little bit more draw velocity, draw into that to get a little bit more of a banana and not just try to punch it off the rail. And I think that would have got me there. But I'm experimenting a little bit as usual. I like to leave myself the easiest shot possible, and in these scenarios where I'm kind of like practice mode a little bit, I am playing tough, but also practicing. I kind of experiment when I play people with using, trying to do a little bit, deviate from my normal system and see if it works, you know. So I've just left it in the jaws here. We sat there for a while, so I think eventually we just get to playing. I think like half the video is the score is like 2-1 or 2-0. And then after we start playing, it gets over fairly quickly. Alright, so he's moved over to the wing already. That's good. Now the key here is to see the cue ball bounce off the rack properly to the middle of the table. And you don't want to use draw necessarily here slightly below center hit to get a stun out of it, where it just starts to turn back to follow. Right, see over there he glanced off the top of it. He went across the face. That takes power off the one, and it also deviates the angle for the wing ball to go in. That's why the wing ball didn't go. If you're going to go across the face like that, you need to hit it much harder to create more power and energy into the wing ball to make it go in. But when you break from the wing, that power seems to be there inherently. So here I'm going to play for this combo. Almost got it. I was playing both balls, so that's a speed thing. And I was mentioning on the last version of this that I need to work on my combinations, and that's on my list. So I'm working on it. That's why I chose to shoot that one instead of trying to get perfectly around another ball. So here, you could play a rail first kick shot into this combo to create separation, or you could hit it with a little bit more speed to try to play shape for the two. Drew back. That was pretty nice. Can make the 3 here. pretty good save. So I'm going to kick this 3 to the end rail, middle of the end rail, and just try to like leave them tough. There's not much I can do to pocket a ball. The 7 was blocking the hole, and I scratched. So here I wanted to talk about position, ball in hand position play here. And like I think eventually I'll get the pointer out, but I like to play the 3 in the top right and leave the cue ball below that so I can go to the end rail and back towards the 4 like in a straight line. And then I can just play the speed of the shot to lead me to position and not have to stroke the ball exactly a certain way to get to a certain spot. I think I'm using the pointer here, so cue ball right there. Make the ball go up and then back towards the 4 on a line so that you're never straight in on it. And in this shot, you see he's drawing straight across the zone of position and beyond it, and now he has no shot. And that line takes you away from a potential hit on the ball. And the way that I would have played it, there was no potential for a non-hit to happen on the 4 because of the way that the shot is set up. If you overrolled it, you might have to play safe where you could even potentially leave yourself short side. But it's unlikely that you'd scratch or hook yourself, and that's a benefit. So always looking to play a little bit more, higher percentage run out positions is huge. This could have been a runnable rack. Once you get to the 5, the 4 to the 5, everything is a little bit more routine. The only shot that was any sort of challenge was the first shot, and that was only challenging because it was a little bit of speed, but you had ball in hand, so really there was no reason to make a mistake unless you choose the wrong shot or a more lower percentage shot that requires a higher level of execution to accomplish. So here I'm just going to play a little bit of punch with a little bit of left English to just go to the right side of the 8. And then I think I go to 2 rails forward here with inside spin, left spin, nice and smooth. Nope, I'm drawing the ball. I can draw to that position. Pretty good. I recommend everybody spend a lot of time with their draw, doing the Mighty X or something. It's really huge to be able to just comfortably get that pull back without feeling like it's you got to hit it too hard. Just playing this for the side. I mentioned that the side pockets are a little bit bigger than the corners, so when your balls are closer to the side like this and they have a good angle, it's a pretty manageable shot compared to shooting this in the corner from further away. Not that they're both not manageable, it's just it's a percentage game. Alright, 3-1 here. See that one, I cut it a little bit, but I got away with it. I got a nice bump back to the middle, but I was way low. But I hit that a little bit softer, and that's why the balls are not really spread out as much as they could be. Didn't get there. I can just play a safety here. Thin off the left side and behind the wall, the 3-9-6 wall. It barely moved. I swear it was a good hit. It was a good hit, actually. It did hit, but it barely did move. So now he's going to have to kick 2 rails. This is no bargain because you can't really predict exactly what's going to happen, because if you hit it full, you might go into this 9 and the 6 or whatever and the 3 and maybe not get a rail, so you can't hit it soft if you're going to hit it that way. But you really want to control both balls to create separation. Very nice hit. Got a little bit of love there. Nice. I'm just going to play it, pocket the 2 in the bottom left and come up for the 3. I think I hit this a little bit soft. Reasonable safe, long, off angle, long to the hole, off angle. One thing you got to think about with pool 2 is sometimes people will like play shape, but in order to get that position, then they have to miss the ball. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the value system you have to use is decide what's most important about the shot, and then speak about that first in your narrative of how you're shooting the shot in your head. And then you'll see that you'll make more balls when you start speaking about it like, oh, okay, I got to make this ball and then play shape for a spot. If you say something like, oh, I need to make sure that I get to this position, then now you haven't even spoken about making the ball. To me, it's obvious that they're not the same sentence, obviously, and that they mean different things, and that one is probably better than the other for purposes of winning at pool. For purposes of just whatever, it doesn't matter, you know. But I think that the way that we speak in our mind and think about shots in our mind is very important. So by just systematically approaching the shot, like, okay, what's important about this shot and what's secondary about this shot, and then talking through it when you're doing it is that way, so that your mind and your body knows, okay, this is what I actually need to have happen, and this would be really nice. And that our intention is both. We start from making the ball, and then we go to, or we start from getting the object ball safe, and then, or start with getting the cue ball there, and then, you know, depending on what you're doing, you have to just be conscious so that you can give your mind a place to go, your body like a way to choose a shot, you know, in priority system. Pretty good. Now I could kick to the either bottom or the top rail here. I like to try to make it, but could have turned out to where if I make the 3, then I get hooked behind the 8 anyways. So I gave him ball in hand, and this is another position error here, I think, for Todd playing it, where the way I like to play this is to play the 3 in the bottom right, leave myself a little of an angle so that I can play one rail back to the middle of the table for the 4. So I'm discussing that with these little lines. Just come back out, because you want to be out there for the 6. And the easiest place to get to to that area for the 6 is to be out there for the 4. And that requires you to cut the ball and come off the rail a certain amount, you know. And this is a standard type shot to play for. And I don't think that you want to play for the short side of the 4. It's difficult. So he's left himself where he's playing ball in hand from the other side. And then not sure exactly where he's trying to go with that, but now that you've gotten into a spot where you're actually kind of left yourself a little bit tough, in a sense of that you can't do as much with controlling the cue ball here, because in order to pocket the ball, you have to kind of bear down on that. And then the cue ball can only go to so many places, and it's not quite wanting to lead you into the place where you want to be. If you had left the cue ball in the middle of the table, even if you'd overrolled it, then you could go to the right rail and back towards the 6. And if you're straight in, you just draw straight back a little bit or stop it. From the middle of the table, you have options. From the right side, you have very limited options. So that's one thing to think about when you're playing for the short side in situations like this. This left me a draw shot on the 4 to the 6. It's a little bit too sweet. So I'm just going to play safe here. I could play a bank shot into the side as well. But some of this is like, because we're playing and I'm doing coaching and stuff, some of the shots that I'm shooting, I'm giving him an opportunity to create some offense and create a few runs, because I do want him to be able to have an opportunity to demonstrate his technique so that I can observe it and coach it. And that by playing just solid and making it really, really hard for him the whole time, I don't necessarily think that that's the best potential for his own personal growth. So I'm working and experimenting with different things that I wouldn't necessarily do under different circumstances. So I appreciate him letting me mess around a little bit while I'm still trying to play well, don't get me wrong, but I am experimenting with different things that I'm developing that eventually will be really strong. It's just going to take a little moment of time, and this is one of those moments. All right, he left me a jump shot. I've been working on jumping the ball quite a bit more lately. I think it's getting to be more and more of a solved game. The equipment now is very consistent. There's plenty of good players that have explained how they are doing it, and I'm working on it. So I missed. I left it pretty tough. So on a shot like this, if you think you can make it, then you need to play position, and that will help you determine exactly what stroke you need to use. If you just are trying to make it and you don't think about the speed of the shot, then you pretty much just have to rely on hoping that all the math works out for you. I think that playing position can help you kind of see the shot better, because the power of the stroke or the strike is going to be a little bit more known than it will be just by hitting it hard. Did not move it. So this is basically the shot on the 3 ball that he would have been good to use. Is just to get a little angle and then just stun across the table. I ended up missing it. I don't know. I kind of was throwing myself off, but a little bit of it was, like I said, I'm trying to help Todd get better. So I'm giving him a few opportunities, but I'm seeing that he's not really ready on a lot of these shots to run out and be successful for whatever reason. So one of the things that is important about pool is that when you're competing, you're playing against your opponent, and when it's your turn to shoot, they're waiting, and when it's their turn to shoot, you're waiting. And then because of that, there's a whole category of things that you need to work on that have not as much to do with playing as much as waiting, and how to learn how to control yourself and to how you're going to behave in the chair, what's called the chair game now. And that's an important thing here. I think that Todd's showing that he's could work on that, as we all can. A lot of times he's not ready to shoot the shot when he gets up to the table, and he doesn't appear to be comfortable when he gets up to the table. And those are things that you can work on through, you spend and you have an intention of like, all right, I'm going to go into this set, and then I'm just going to, when it's not my turn, my intention is to frame everything and reframe any negative idea I have in my head into a positive one while I'm sitting while it's not my turn, while my opponent's playing, in the spirit of that I don't know what's going to happen, and my opponent can miss at any time, and I might get an opportunity right away. So by having a good attitude about that, then when that actually does happen, because it does happen occasionally, people will miss out of the blue and then leave you a shot. And maybe it won't be easy, but if I'm more ready for it, then that's better. And that's why I need to be ready by also having my narrative locked. All right, so he's left me long, but in front of the hole. So now I just have to hit it pure with a little bit of follow and come to straight in on the one in the left bottom corner as such. Okay, we're at 4-1. So he made a ball and drew to the side. So this is pretty good. A little bit more speed. Not as much. You don't want it to be drawing the ball. You need more speed so that you can get energy into the rack. The cue ball will bounce back towards you. It doesn't really need draw. It just needs to not have follow on it. And here, playing 2 rails to that area where Todd's looking at that combo is the shot, I think. You could also try to play the 2 into the side as well. So now you just got to draw your lines and then make your cue ball go on those lines. Yeah, the key to this is to go to the left of the 3, but to the right of the 5 to have that angle. So if you use too much draw here, it won't happen. Yeah, got safe on himself. And it's very important when we're competing how to, responding as well as we can. I think that if we're reacting too much in a negative way and having negative responses to what's going on, even just a little bit, then that opens the door for more of that activity. So it's important that we really do a good job of responding as positively as we can, as quickly as we can. And once we start realizing that we're not doing that, And pool is one of those really amazing games that takes your mental game and can shred it down to nothing real quick. And it takes a lifetime for some people to learn how to just get through it, because there's so much animated, so much like elevated emotion at the beginning that over time you have to learn how to deal with. And that's part of the reason why you do it, is to put yourself in these uncomfortable situations where you're triggering yourself, and then you learn a strategy. Another thing to mention here is that you always want to take the rack off the table early on if you can, so it's not as distracting and like maybe kind of throw you off. You're going to remove it anyways, so you should do it at the beginning before anything has happened. Before anything needs to happen, as much as you can. Not to say that you have to, but you should really. But I think one rail kick here is the right way. But I think it's pretty apparent to me that it looks like he's going to hit it to the left of the two. So I'm not sure if he used the system or if he was just guessing there. Alright, I got ball in hand. 7 balls left on the table. Looking to see what's good here. I think I'm just going to play, top left and follow, just so I can shoot the 3 in the bottom left. Came up a little bit short. My goal was actually to get straighter in than that. I kind of got to the 50-yard line here. I hit that really full, so I came up short. And I think I have to spin this ball in, and I end up missing it. Should have took more time on the visualization, because this was totally makeable. I just barely needed to turn, and it turns out. So here Todd's got a prime opportunity, and this is an example where I think he's not ready to shoot. Like, I would have considered going over and looking to see where I needed to be on the 5 so I can get to the 7. He didn't do that. And then he hit the ball and got way up there to where now this is pretty difficult. Yeah, it's just a little bit discombobulated and not sure what's going on here, so I'm just mentioning things that it looks like maybe will help. Yeah, and not sure what the plan was with that shot. Yeah, pool is one of those amazing games that as soon as you like let you lose your wits or whatever, it's over, and it gets just degenerates very quickly into a mess. So much of it's just about staying in control of yourself, so that you're there consciously actually fighting for yourself and not just giving it back. Not just giving it away. Just punch this over. This is where I'm still getting used to the cloth a little bit. Like, this shot is not the same on this table. I thought I was going to be able to get straight in. I kind of drew the ball a little bit. And this is good too, but it's so much of it's interesting. This is a lifelong journey to like understand the physics of what's going on better. put myself on the break. Let's just play to roll out here. And in this situation, I know he can make the ball. I just want to see what he does. So much of this is observing and coaching here. So the 2 to 3 things I see, you can cut it in the top left, try to hold it. You can bank it, or you can play safe. I'm not sure if that was a bank shot or if that was a safety. If you're banking it, though, you should be trying to play controlled position. Otherwise, you're going to have to play safe anyway, so you might as well just play safe when there's less balls on the table, especially against a good player like myself that can run balls. You don't want to just leave like 4 balls on the table when you can leave 7 or 8. It's better, just because it's harder for me to do it. So here I've left a potential bank shot with position on the 2, and I would probably just shoot it myself. Playing safe here could work out, but I almost feel like this is just as safe just by rolling it and playing shape for the 2. Pretty good shot. Left it in front of the hole. Which, if the 8 wasn't there, I could easily jump the 2 and potentially make the 1. But he's left me tough enough to where I have to elevate and swerve and masse just a little bit, semi-masse, and then spin off the rail and try to create separation, because there's really no ball pocket that can be made here. Yeah, and just caught it perfectly to scratch. But I would have created separation. So that was a pretty good shot. I wasn't sure how easily I could even hit it, so I was happy to do it. So here's another situation. I like playing the cue ball above the 6 ball where the pointer is at, so that you can go into the side rail and back versus drawing, because that draw shot requires to have a perfect stroke, and then not only that, but you're going across the zone of position, so you have to land right on it like you did this time, and that is going to work out until it doesn't. And then if you think about the percentages, then you'll see that it's not really the way to go. Now he's just going to have to roll this ball in. But those extravagant like pre-strokes on a shot like this don't seem to me as though they're very helpful. If you need to burn the energy off, then you should walk around and use like a little bit more of the energy of your strength of your body. I think that, one of the things you want to work on over time is just learning how to like control your stroke a little bit better as far as your pre-strokes, and just make them smoother. As far as even the way you swing the cue, has got to be a little bit more detail and artistry to it. I think I should have just played short side here, but I ended up playing to try to play above it, and then I got funny on it. So now here I'm playing between the 9 and the 7 with my position. But I hopped the ball so the cue ball went forward and at the 9. And then on this shot, I think that I need to add to look down to watch the 6 go in by like standing behind it, and then really connecting with that viewpoint like I'm pointing here, so that when I shoot this shot, I can make it. Because that one I wouldn't say I hit it bad, but obviously I didn't make the ball. And you see that my cue ball is not even close to where I want it to go, so I wasn't really ready to shoot that shot properly. I don't know if he can play underneath the 9 here. He ends up playing, just smashes it. And I don't know if he doesn't scratch there where the cue ball's gonna go. Maybe it will come back across and back. Seemed a little bit like speed's an issue here. Yeah, one thing that's huge about pools is understanding the speed control. That is the unlocks, your ability to get beyond where you're at with pool. So much of it is learning how to control the cue ball. Not even just to make the ball. I think most people don't realize that cue ball control, like ball pocketing, is cue ball control. It's just before you hit the ball. Then after that, then understanding what residual energy is on the cue ball, that's where the remainder of the cue ball control is. But then in order to make the ball also, now you're going to apply spin and stuff like that, and that's going to make it more difficult. So there's a lot going on, but all of it centers around ability to strike the cue ball accurately so that you can learn the most from every shot and control the cue ball, like either from the distance from you to the ball, or from the where the cue ball is, hitting into the object ball, and then from the object ball to the remainder of the path of the shot. So you always want to, I think, you always want to know exactly what you're trying to do, and as much as you can connect to that before you shoot. And I think the habit of learning how to do that gradually over time will speed up, and then you'll get better and better at it. Narrowly missed that kick shot. It was a good try. Making that shot had very little bonus involved to it, though. I would think that playing a safety or like a rollout is much more strategically the right shot than kicking and trying to make that ball. Because the cue ball would be just going away from the two behind maybe the balls, and you might end up having to kick again at the two. By making the one, you're actually making your life harder. Just going around table. I don't want to end up with anything in particular here, because I think I was trying to get straight in so I could shoot the two and then shoot the three in the left. But I end up just kind of floating, and now I'm straight in so I can draw. And this is very touchy to just draw a couple feet, and this is why you got to really work on your cue ball control so that shots like this you can execute without feeling like it's out of your control, because you got to use kind of a weird stroke, because you got to move your cue back right away after you draw back because it's so close. Yeah, I think that shot I could have done a little bit better. Got down a little bit too quickly because I'm like underneath the ball. I needed to be straighter than that. And then I hit that ball too straight. Missed it. I left Todd a really good opportunity here. This is like stop shot. Roll forward, leave yourself an angle, and then 1 to 2 rail position for the 9 standard. And all you got to do is just stay with it the whole time, This is totally fine. And here, I like playing it high ball, maybe. But I feel like he just got down really fast and just wasn't accurate. He hit it too full, so he came up short. And at the end of the rack, it's each shot kind of becomes more important to get shape. Like my style of play that I try to espouse to is that each shot ideally is easier as you continue into the rack, and then that negates the pressure that you're feeling from mounting, because you're like, well, this is just getting easier because I'm actually getting myself into these better positions, and then everything is more and more like routine shots. And that's what I like to do. Not that it always happens, but that's my mentality. So he babies it and doesn't get there. Actually, if he would have hit it harder, it would have hit fuller maybe and then just gone right in. So really all he needed to do is just hit it just a little bit harder, and he's there. But again, that only happened because he hit the 8 a little bit too full and didn't get there. So I gotta double check to make sure I'm not tripping, and I gotta hit this ball a little bit thin so I don't scratch. Had the cue ball basically going on the line to go back to the middle of the table if it continues to extend beyond that 2-rail spot. 7-1. Same kind of thing, breaking the same way, trying to get the same position for a break and run, hopefully. Drew that cue ball back. That's why the 1 doesn't go as far forward. That draw reduces the amount of pump that comes off the 2, or off the 1 ball, I should say. So I made a ball, but the wing ball didn't go here. So I'm just going to shoot the 2 or the 1 and try to play 2 rails for the 2 ball down underneath. But this is an easy safety position to play where I can just slide off the 1 and go 2 rails down under the 2 and probably get there most of the time. But I'm trying to go for it. Like I said, at 7-1 down, and the whole goal here is to help Todd get better. He needs to hit some balls so that he can have an opportunity. So that one, I don't know, he needed to make sure to not draw the ball. Or maybe this the perfect double kissed, maybe? I'm not sure. But I like the shot. He just hit it too hard. You don't need it to get all the way to the corner pocket to get safe. So I know that if I don't get perfect on the 3 or on the 2, then I won't be able to avoid moving the 3. So, but the 1 got a little bit thin instead of being in front of the hole, so it's harder for me to get that. So now I'm playing the angle, and I'm playing to play the 3 ball into the side here, and I hit it too hard. So here, just like make sure to get hit nice and low on the cue ball, but not a lot of speed. You don't want to hit it so hard that you can jump the cue ball. It's more about hitting it precisely at the bottom of the cue ball so you can get a good spin on it. And then you got to give the table an opportunity to grab the ball by hitting it a little bit with less velocity. You know, a little bit less velocity on every shot helps everything work a little bit better. Less risk as far as, overhitting it and missing balls. All right, 8-1. Yeah, that you gotta hit it a little bit more power and not draw. You want it to stun. So it's below center, but it's a stun shot, not a draw shot, not a stop shot. I'm trying to bank this ball because the angle to cut in the side is tough with the cue ball, the 2 being elevated over the 2. So I ended up just kind of smashing it a little bit there to get my shape. Because I was trying to get straight in on the 2 so I could roll forward for the 3. I think the 3 passes the 8er is an easier combo than most of the other shots. So that was my pattern. It's a good save here. The interesting thing about playing against this level of opponent is that mostly it doesn't even matter necessarily what if I make a hit here, because if I don't make a hit, then mostly he's not going to be able to get out. Which is one of the interesting things about pool is that at the higher levels, control is more important. Like at Todd's level, because he doesn't run a ton of balls, he can't control the rack very long. So me trying to like work hard to keep control of it isn't actually as useful as just not worrying about so much about him having control, knowing that I'm going to get plenty of opportunities most of the time, and that I just need to make sure that when the important parts are, when I know that he's going to really be able to get out a lot of the time, then I'm not letting him do that. So like early in the rack, it's fine to, give an opponent that's not a huge ball runner. That was almost made the 9. That was amazing. A couple different opportunities to make it here, and he doesn't capitalize. Bumps it, but it doesn't go. But he does slop in the ball. Then he has to end up playing it intentional because he's hooked now. I might have gotten my jump cue out and tried to make the 3 in the side and just played this, try to get there from here. But he likes to just give it to me, ball in hand, and then see if I can run the balls, which at my level is pretty much, I wouldn't say certain death, but it's pretty dicey. Strategically, against a weaker player, that's a fine move. May not be the profitable play against me. And that's the thing, is you got to mess around with your percentages and see how that all works for you. Because you're the one that has to live with it. Like, he could have tried to jump that ball if he wanted to, obviously. So, and that was just, the decision that he made, you just have to be okay with it. So I'm looking pretty good here. Just making sure to leave myself a little bit of an angle when I need to. That one, it was like, kind of had to make sure I didn't hit the 8, so I kind of babied it. But on this shot, I like to be above the 9 ball to shoot the 8 here, because then I can go to the end rail and back up, which I think is a little bit easier to play for the corners when you shoot that type of shot versus going from the side rail and up. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great one.